This is Jack Moelmann. It's the 1st of July 2011, and we're in a hotel in Providence, Rhode Island as part of the ATOS Annual Convention. And with us today is John Ledwon, who has done a lot of things with ATOS and around the theater organ. He's been a past president of ATOS. He was on the board of directors, concert organist himself, and we're glad to have you, John.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How'd you get started in music?
Well, actually, my parents bought a Hammond Spinet M3, and just for the family use, and then I started playing it, and evidently was able to do pretty well at it. So they bought a larger instrument, still a Hammond, and that started the whole thing.
So, when did you become a concert organist? Obviously, after you learned how to play, but
Actually, I think I did my first public performance like 6 months after I started. For, I don't know what it was, my dad found something for me to do. I think it was a California Real Estate Association, if I remember right. And so I ended up performing at that after 6 months. My first instructor was Orville Foster, who was an old theater organist, who was very pushy as far as getting you to do things. So he pushed me to do things quickly. So I think about 6 months afterwards I started.
well, now you don't consider yourself a professional organist in the sense that that's your livelihood.
No, I always call myself a hack organist. I was an educator for 20 some odd years in high school education. I taught theater arts and actually also mathematics when the need arose. And when the El Capitan, Walt Disney Company put in the El Capitan Theater Wurlitzer, I was approached if I would want to be one of the organists there. So I did that starting in 1999, gave up teaching, and for 12 years I've had an absolutely wonderful experience with
And
it.
the El Capitan is where?
Hollywood, across the street from the Groman's Chinese, across the street from the Kodak Theater.
And tell them a little bit about that organ, where it came from.
Well, that came from the organ in there is a 4-manual 37 rank, came out of the San Francisco Fox Theater. They tore that thing down somewhere in the early 60s, I believe. And the organ went into Frank Lanterman's home. He was a California assemblyman. And then he died, and the organ was taken out and ultimately purchased by the Walt Disney Company for installation in the El Capitan Theater, and it was put in there in 1999. Our first show was Tarzan, and with a stage show and the organ being used, and the organ actually was also used during the stage show, so it was featured very heavily at that point.
Now, you've lived in the Los Angeles area a long time, and recently you claim as home up in Henderson, Nevada, I guess.
Henderson, Nevada, yes, after...
Near Las Vegas.
Yeah, being born and raised in California, I needed a change. I'd had enough of it, and so I was looking for a place where I could commute. Basically, when we do the El Capitan, we do 2, 3, 4 days at a stint. So I was looking for someplace I could commute, and the only city I could find outside of the state of California that was commutable was Las Vegas. And Henderson is a southern suburb, which brought it about another 20 minutes closer. So my commute between the El Capitan Theater and my home in Henderson is about 3 hours and 30 minutes, which isn't too bad. It's 250 some miles.
Now, you had a rather sizable pipe organ in your house when you lived in the Los Angeles area, and now you've downsized?
Yes, again, my parents bought me a pipe organ when I was like 15, and that was installed in our San Fernando Valley home. And then I moved out when I built my house in Agora when I was just finishing college, and I moved it to there and expanded it to a 3-manual 26 rank organ. 2 years later, it burned in a brush fire. The house burned down and most of the organ burned down, but since the organ chambers had been made particularly well soundproof, that also acted as a barrier for the fire. So a lot of the organ was salvageable, at least the mechanics. Most of the pipework more than 4 feet high melted. If it was metal pipework above 4 feet, it was basically lost. And then I put the organ back in, didn't really care for the sound of it. It was about 38 ranks that time. So upped it to 52 ranks, put a new 4-manual console on it, and had it for I guess about 14 years there before I ultimately donated it to the Nethercutt Collection, which was San Silmar in Silmar, California. They sat on it for 3 years. It was supposed to go in their car museum across the street from the the main facility, but that didn't come to pass, and they turned around and sold it. Then I found out about that and bought back all the percussions on the organ to go with a 3-manual 8-rank Wurlitzer church organ I had bought in Michigan. So I was able to get all the percussions off my organ. So I'm now in the process, just now starting the installation. The chamber's finished. It's all somewhat subterranean, but not all the way. And interesting, I don't do anything conventional. The installation is going to be unique. The chamber walls are black. The blower is underneath the living room or the music room, great room floor in a concrete vault. The regulators are under the music room floor in concrete vaults. And then you have the chambers, which will be, the one chamber which will have plexiglass swell shades so that you can see into it. And all in all, it's going to be a different installation.
Well, you never do anything in a traditional way, do you?
No, I'm one of these that believes in working outside the envelope, outside the box. The installation I had in Agora, I initiated some things. Oh, we better get rid of that telephone there, Jack. Step on it, that'll shut it up real quick. Should we stop for a second while you...
Yeah, just break. Well, that was the phone ringing, so we had a little brief interruption, but what were we talking about?
Well, I know we still on the outside the box.
Yeah.
When I did my installation in Agora, I innovated a few things that hadn't been done before, like all the regulators in a area underneath the chamber, so that the chambers had nothing but pipes, and a small amount of chest work, and a few other things that were different. But basically, that was one of the things I started out. Also, manual indicators that were cancels, or not, like when we look at your stop keys where it says accompaniment, solo, orchestral, great, you touch those things and they do operate as general cancels for the division. I started that one, and I got that off an Austin organ where they have a bar underneath the keys, and you touch the bar and it canceled everything. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea. How can we do that on the Wurlitzers? So I ended up doing it on the divisional labels. So those kind of things.
Well, as a concert artist and you go around, you've got a philosophy on what kind of music to present in your concerts. A little different than some.
I have been preaching since I was president of ATOS back in, 90? In the 90s?
88.
88 to 90 or something. That we need to stop playing this music of the 1920s and 30s, because if we don't, we're going to lose the younger audiences. Well, I expounded on that theory for the longest time, didn't get very far, and as far as I can see, we have lost the younger artists. Well, not artists, but audiences, to the point now where our audiences are probably mid-50s and older. I think you should be playing music of what I call music that is our music, and I consider that to be music from when we're about 16 to 30, when we are probably our most passionate time of our life, and that is the music that we relate to. So that basically is what we like to hear individually. And of course now if you're playing 1920s and 1930s music, your youngest age at that age group, that's going to be in the mid-90s. So as far as I can see, those people are pretty much gone. So we need to be looking at more contemporary music. The theater organ was built in the 1920s, but it's capable of playing music of any era, and it does very well on a lot of the contemporary music. And Disney, we do when we do the El Capitan, we're all completely doing Disney music. Well, I mean, Elton John has done some Disney music, Phil Collins. This stuff works great on the organ, so why not use it? I've also taken a lot of stuff off CDs, which isn't even on print, just because it's cool music. And we definitely need to do more of that. People playing the old 1920s, 1930s music, well, it's kind of quaint and it's kind of cute to hear. It's not going to bring in audience members.
Well, thinking about performances and where you've played and things like that, obviously the El Capitan is a very exciting place, but in going around and giving concerts, what do you think was the most exciting thing, the best program you ever did in terms of the venue, the organ, the audience, the whole thing? What was the most spectacular thing you ever did?
You had mentioned this earlier as a question. I honestly don't know. Probably favorite organ, of course, is definitely the El Capitan organ, but I played it more. But it's such a complete, large instrument, and it has such a, it was meant for a 6,000 seat theater, and it's in a 1,000 seat theater, so it really fills the building beautifully. I still kind of fondly remember some of the organs over in London, some of the, like the Kilburn State. To me, that's one of the nicest little Wurlitzers. And when I say little, a 16 rank 4 manual Wurlitzer, but tonally quite different from what we do in the United States, but just a prince of an organ.
Good. What do you think was the most challenging program you've ever done?
And again, I was thinking about that one, and I really can't think of anything where I've played. I played a couple organs that have had, shall we say, I'm not going to name them because I don't think that would be fair because they're probably in better shape now, but I've played a couple where I was expecting organs to be in superb condition just to come in and find they're riddled with dead notes, even relay notes, so some of the keys are dead, stop keys that don't work, stop keys that won't shut off, that kind of stuff. That's kind of, I find to be kind of an insulting situation, especially if they're pulling it off as a concert venue when the organ is definitely with problems. If you're looking for challenging organs to play, even though it's well maintained and a fabulous instrument, the Senate Theater in Detroit, because of its stop layout, is certainly one of the more unique ones. The stop keys are not done in Wurlitzer's traditional style; they're done by chambers. So you have a foundation chamber, a main chamber, a swell chamber, not a swell, a solo, and all the ranks in that thing are done by footage from 16 foot down to 2 foot by chambers. So you have it's a totally different layout. Makes it very difficult if you don't know the organ.
What would be your advice to people looking at this particular recording video about how to pursue music, how to even listen to it if they're interested in playing? Any advice you want to give to sort of summarize your life?
I guess when you're talking about advice, what is the advice related to as far as if you're, I really don't know that I'd have a whole lot of things. You do what you enjoy doing if you're playing, but keep in mind if you're playing for the public, you better play things that are at least timely. Nothing wrong with 1920s music, as I said earlier, but if you're playing to a younger audience, so you don't lose them, I would suggest playing things that are more contemporary. When I say more contemporary, that's anything, 70s, 80s, 90s. It doesn't have to be 2010 music, even though there's some decent stuff there too. Some of the film music and some of the show music from musical theater is just superbly suited for the organ.
Looking ahead, actually looking behind of where you have played, what would be a place, an organ that you have not been to or have not played that you would like to, the ultimate challenge?
Oh, wow. I've been fortunate to be able to get in access-wise to any organ, basically, that I wanted. When I was in Australia, the Sydney Town, or the Melbourne Town Hall organ, the big, I guess it's Willis, I believe, which has a 64-foot rank on it, and a magnificent sound. I was able to get in it. I was able to get in and play it for a couple of hours. Oh, here we have another phone call.
Okay, the phone call has been taken care of. Where were we?
We were at Melbourne Town Hall with the big classical Willis there. That was an organ that I found to be a very challenge. And of course, along with that one, the other organ that has a 64-foot full-length rank is the Atlantic City Convention Hall, and so it was kind of cool to be able to play that. Some of my stuff that I did at the convention hall ended up on their DVD, and so I played the two organs that have full-length 64s. That was kind of a goal I had, and I did that. As far as other things, I've been fortunate to play most instruments from Japan, Wurlitzers, to Australia, and all the way out to Perth, all over Europe. So I haven't had a whole lot. One I've never played, but kind of fun to play, would be the Atlanta Fox. I've never done that. I mean, even if it was just to sit down and play it for 15, 20 minutes. I played both the Detroit and St. Louis Fox, again, not in program or anything, but just for the fun of it. And I've been fortunate to be able to play most of them. So.
Well, we appreciate your time. We're going to sort of close this thing out. And do you have anything you want to add to the...
Well, not really. I think that, if this is something which is going to be archived for the future, I hope that, I think we need to look too upon the fact that while we're looking at the theater organ having kind of maybe run its course, and its viability is, while it's still good and strong, is not meeting with a lot of public acceptance. And but then you have to realize the organ is probably the oldest musical instrument around, and it's always evolved through the centuries. And basically, the theater organ was the precursor of the synthesizer. And now we have the synthesizer, which is probably the route that the organ has gone to, except it's, of course, changed its shape. It no longer has more than one keyboard. It no longer has pedal boards. You can put it under your arm and carry it with you. But basically, I think the synthesizer is the, as where the theater organ has evolved to. Where it goes to next, I haven't the foggiest idea, but it's exciting wherever it goes.
Well, we thank you, John Ledwon, for being with us today, the 1st of July 2011. And this is Jack Moelmann, and we look forward to great things from you, John, in the future.
Thank you for having me.